Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and today we are previewing the San Francisco 49ers against the Seattle Seahawks in Week 1 of the NFL season in what will be a phenomenal NFC West rivalry matchup to open up the 2025 NFL season and hopefully kick things off in the right direction for the San Francisco 49ers. And with that said, we're going to get into everything from top to bottom, including the head coaching matchup, the coordinator matchup between Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDonald, Robert Saleh, and Clint Kubiak. Also going to dive into Brock Purdy's history in Seattle against the Seahawks, the matchup with Christian McCaffrey making his illustrious return to the gridiron, the first time since we've seen him since Buffalo last season in 2024. Also going to get into maybe how San Francisco could lose this game on Sunday, but nonetheless, happy to celebrate the return of the king, not Lord of the Rings, but the return of the sports king. NFL football is back. It's here. Some meaningful San Francisco 49er games are finally upon us in 2025. Hope you guys are ready for what I believe can be a very special season for the San Francisco 49ers. And with that said, hopefully you guys can also like, share, and subscribe to the show and leave us that 5-star audio podcast review. It is the freest and easiest way to help the show reach new eyes and new ears in the 2025 NFL season. So let's dive in. Niners, Seahawks, Week 1. Who comes out on top and how will this game go? Let's kick things off and discuss the head coaching battle between Kyle Shanahan of the San Francisco 49ers and Mike McDonald of the Seattle Seahawks, because both of these teams have a ton to prove this season. Both these teams believe they can be vying for a playoff spot when it's all said and done. And both these teams enter Week 1 with the chip on their shoulder. For the Seattle Seahawks, 10-7 last year, narrowly missing the playoffs. They believe they can get in 2025, and they believe they should have been in 2024. They want to get over the hump for the first time with McDonald at the helm as their head coach. On the other side, the red and gold, wearing their white and gold at Lumen Field this Sunday, is Kyle Shanahan, coming off of one of the worst years of his tenure outside of 2020. San Francisco won just 6 games last year, yet they're healthy again. 52 of the 53 guys on that active roster are back at practice. They feel like they can return to the mountaintop if they can just stay healthy. 11 new draft picks on the roster, an influx of young talent, and some improvements with the defensive line. Again, a lot of young guys in that room. Robert Saleh is back in the building. San Francisco believes it is their turn to hit the reverse button and undo what was 2024. But right now, as we speak, it is 11:16 p.m. on Wednesday, September 3rd, on the eve of NFL kickoff for the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday Night Football. Right now, Kyle Shanahan sits currently 1-2 all-time against Mike McDonald of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, McDonald used to be the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens a couple years ago, and I think we all remember that game at Levi's Stadium. It was the Brock Purdy 4-interception game. Sam Darnold got some reps, and Kyle Hamilton had his way against San Francisco's defense. But it's not been too pretty for Kyle Shanahan. 2 losses and 1 win on his record against Mike McDonald. He has been outscored 72-77 by McDonald's teams, and his defense has 6 takeaways against the Kyle Shanahan offense. So there is some form of ownage, albeit again only a 1-2 record. McDonald's defense does, or at least is growing towards the top of, I don't want to say kryptonite. That's a pretty serious term to say. It means you always lose against it. But he's not quite Jim Schwartz status for Kyle Shanahan. But there is this sense of this looming threat in Seattle, the defensive mindset, how Seattle plays defense. is maybe becoming or could be a problem for Kyle Shanahan's offense going forward. But despite all of that, despite the takeaways, turnover battle, the wins, the losses, Shanahan's only win against Mike McDonald's defense came last year in Seattle when San Francisco put up 36 points against the Seahawks and won a game to, at that point in time, keep their playoff hopes alive. So them being in Seattle week 1 on Sunday may give Niner fans, including myself, a little more confidence that San Francisco may pull this thing out at the end of the day. It's an important 5-game stretch to begin for the San Francisco 49ers because 3 of their first 5 games are against the NFC West, and 2 of their first 3 games are also against the NFC West. They start off against the Seahawks, the Saints, and the Arizona Cardinals. It is imperative the San Francisco 49ers begin this season hot. You cannot stumble out of the gate. If you do, in what is kind of been labeled as one of the easiest schedules in football, you can't fumble that. San Francisco must come out of the gate hot, on fire. They're healthy, they are motivated, and hopefully things can result in a win for San Francisco. That said, Kyle Shanahan's offense, obviously it's a wide zone, inside zone running scheme and whatnot, but it does, like I've already kind of hinted towards, have some trouble against a Mike McDonald style of defense, which inherently is a Vic Fangio style defense. It's not exactly a 1-for-1 comparison, but it is that Fangio tree. A lot of pre-snap 2 high looks, a lot of press coverage, some disguising of blitzes. They'll run 5-man fronts sometimes. They'll play 3 safety sets. It is a very Vic Fangio style thing you see in Philadelphia now that we also saw in San Francisco over a decade ago. My God, time is flying by. Vic Fangio was the defensive coordinator in like 2011 and 12. What is going on? Now he is the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, who won the Super Bowl last year. And I'm sure McDonald in Seattle is hoping his defense can take a very large leap like that of the Philadelphia Eagles a couple seasons ago. But I'll tell you what, it is a test. This is going to be a great first week test. It may be even a trial or a tribulation for San Francisco, but thankfully, the man at the helm for the San Francisco 49ers is Brock Purdy, who all time is 4-1 against the Seattle Seahawks, with 3 of those wins, I believe, coming in Seattle. Is that right? He had the one with the broken ribs in his rookie season in 2022. 3 of his wins, okay. 3 of his, I guess you can include the playoff one. He's 5-1, but I digress. A really good schedule, a really good record for Brock Purdy in Seattle. All the talk of the 12th man, the crowd, it never seems to affect him too much. Brock has always had a knack for playing good in big moments, playoff games. Again, he walked off the field in the Super Bowl with the 3-point lead. Not his fault they lost that game. I think Brock fares well in Seattle. The crowd doesn't bother him too much. And people like yourselves, faithful all around the world in the country, I believe right now, according to Vivid Seats, are going to be there. And they're going to fill up 53%. Over half of that stadium will be wearing the red and gold. So good for Brock, good for San Francisco, and good for fans like yourself out there traveling all around the globe to watch your San Francisco 49ers play in person and cheer on the red and gold live at Lumen Field this Sunday for the San Francisco 49ers. But Brock Purdy ultimately has been darn good against the Seattle Seahawks in his career. In fact, I can argue Seattle's defense didn't get much better. They're trying to, again, transition into that Ravens defense that McDonald coached 2 years ago. They want to add in their safeties. There's a reason why they drafted Nicky Manwari out of South Carolina this year in the draft. They want to run 3 safety sets, but you don't really have the personnel just yet. We'll dive into more of this later, but they don't have a single good coverage linebacker. The pass rush is a big question for them. They have some guys that can certainly play well. Obviously, you like Reek Woolen, you like Devon Witherspoon, you like some guys on that defense, but inherently, Seattle's defense really is not in a position to scare anybody. They're trying to improve, just not there yet. And so I think Brock Purdy can actually have a pretty big game against the Seattle Seahawks. Again, never had a problem against them in the past, whether it was Pete Carroll, and even last year. Last year for San Francisco, it's kind of a wash, right? Offensively, a lot of guys injured. Defensively, you might as well not even had a defensive coordinator last year. It was that bad. And they've let a lot of guys walk in free agency. So you can't really make much of last year's matchups against the Seattle Seahawks if you are the 49ers. But I do think Brock Purdy's in for a fairly nice day. I'm not going to say he's in for 300 plus yards and 4 touchdowns, but I think for Brock, it's about being efficient. Usually, if you win the turnover battle, you'll win football games. And I believe every time Shanahan's offense has beat a Mike McDonald defense, they've won the turnover battle. They lost it when they played the Ravens on Christmas Day 2 years ago. They lost it last year when they lost to Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks at Levi Stadium on the walk-off scramble. And we all said, oh my God, season's over, right? Trent got hurt that day. It was a terrible day out there at Levi's. But the game they won in Seattle, Geno threw 2 interceptions. A clutch one to Mustafa early, forced by Nick Bosa, and a second one late to Renardo Green. If San Francisco, mainly Brock Purdy, can hold on to the football and play things safe, albeit smart, and still have the explosive plays, I think San Francisco can win this game at a pretty high clip. Brock, to me, is awesome. Like, knowing it's Brock and not other quarterbacks that have been here in previous years, like if San Francisco walked into this game, let's say with Jimmy Garoppolo or, I don't know, previous quarterbacks under this regime, which not many have been very good, Brock's by far the best, I'd be worried. But having Brock there, despite having the questions with the receiver room and the offensive line, I'm actually pretty confident walking into this game for San Francisco. I think it'll be close. But I do think Brock being there with the chemistry he has with Ricky Pearsall and the newly signed, or I guess re-signed, reworked deal of Jauan Jennings, you have Kittle, you have Christian McCaffrey, that should be enough to overpower the Seattle Seahawks defense in this game. And if they don't, then we are entering week 2 or leaving week 1 with a lot more questions because the San Francisco 49ers really should be able to overpower the Seahawks defense in this one. We're looking at over 24 points in this game, if you're asking myself, which you're here, so you kind of are. But speaking of Christian McCaffrey, we have not seen Christian McCaffrey since last year. I believe it was either week 13 or 14. Maybe it was 12 against the Buffalo Bills where he injured his PCL after returning from an Achilles injury. We haven't seen Christian McCaffrey since, and many fans out there, maybe including yourself, have not seen him at all. Didn't go to OTAs, didn't go to practice, have been waiting, have been dying to see Christian McCaffrey on the football field. He makes his return this Sunday. The former Offensive Player of the Year, the dynamic maestro, as I call him, Christian McCaffrey returns to the gridiron. The beautiful white lines of the NFL football field, the 10, the 20, the 30, the 40, the 50, and so on and so forth. He finally steps foot back on the football field for the San Francisco 49ers. And the question becomes, what are the expectations for CMC in this game? The negative aspect may be he looks slow. He needs some time to get his feet under him again. And maybe the wide receiver room's question marks behind Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall maybe lend you to say they're going to overwork him. They're going to do these things. Make no mistake. San Francisco is going to run Christian McCaffrey into the ground. Now, when I say that, I say it lightheartedly, but although there is some concern there, you have to ask yourself why. And we know Kyle Shanahan. If the running back is hot and they're flowing and they feel good and they're healthy, he will ride you until the wheels fall off. Is it always the smart thing to do? No. You have Brian Robinson. Use him, Kyle. Use him. I think in short yardage games at the goal line where San Francisco had a really hard time putting away drives last year in the red zone, Brian Robinson comes in handy. I think he fills that closer role for you that Jordan Mason was supposed to have, but didn't actually have last year and 2 years ago. That said, Christian McCaffrey is in, I think, for a massive return to the football field. You got to think, While the Niners themselves, the organization, the team as a whole, they want to go out there and prove they still got it, that they are supposed to be here and they belong. You don't think Christian McCaffrey feels maybe even more motivated of like, look, I hear all the tweets. I see all the comments. I hear the fan base. Oh, he's slow. I see reporters of my own team telling me I've lost a step. I want to prove those guys wrong. I'm a father now. I got dad strength now. I have dad Achilles tendons now. I got a dad PCL. I mean, I have to go out there and prove to these fools, these suckers, if you will, that I can still get this done. Now, the reason why I speak so confidently of Christian McCaffrey is because when you look at his statistics against the Seattle Seahawks, oh, they are phenomenal. In 7 career games against the Seattle Seahawks, Christian McCaffrey has 1,084 yards and 8 total touchdowns in 7 games. He's averaging a total of 154 yards and over 1 touchdown in 7 games against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, yeah, I get it. Look, different defense, different schemes, different head coaches and whatnot, different cultures. It's not a one-for-one thing, right? New things can happen, new schemes can be adapted, and they can stop Christian McCaffrey. But the odds are Christian McCaffrey will touch the football 12 to 15 plus times in this game. And the history says when he does that, he will score a touchdown and have over 100 plus yards, whether through the air or on the ground. And if you let Christian McCaffrey gash your defense like that, the odds are you're going to lose that game, Seattle. So my money is on Christian McCaffrey and history happening once again, repeating itself this Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe it's not 150 yards and 1 touchdown. Maybe it's 120. Maybe it's 100. But the expectation should be Christian McCaffrey is used often and also used efficiently in this game. I am begging Kyle with the questions behind Jauan Jennings and Pearsall at receiver to have McCaffrey flexed out wide in the slot, in the screen game. Don't just hammer the point home of inside run, run to your left, don't do that. McCaffrey is so dynamic that while, yes, he can do those things at a high clip, he can really be the most or one of the most efficient weapons in football. Like it's Saquon, it's Christian McCaffrey. Those guys are, one of ones, one of twos, really. Like they're very similar players, albeit different skill sets and builds. What they can do for you on the ground through the air is unlike anybody else in football. And I think San Francisco would be smart, and Kyle, being a smart dude, would be smart to employ or utilize Christian McCaffrey in that way. I think this Niners team needs him through the air. And I think for Brock Purdy, and I've hit this point home so many times during the podcast and on YouTube and the shows we do there as well, that Brock Purdy never or didn't like to hit the check down last year. You hear Brock say, I want to reel things back in, play in the offense more. Well, those things come via the vertical passing game too. Having Christian McCaffrey almost calms Brock Purdy down, allows him to take a 4-yard check down on 2nd and 6 and give you a 3rd and 2. Those are the difference-making plays in games that don't often get talked about, where you saw San Francisco in 2022 and 23. They moved the football at ease. Whether it was Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy, San Francisco was having a field day on offense. You want to know why? Yeah, Ayuk was great. Debo was great. Kittle, Hall of Famer in my eyes. And the offensive line played fairly well. But because you had Christian McCaffrey, the ultimate X factor on offense back there on running plays, but also in the passing game, giving your quarterback an easy check down option on 2nd and long, on 1st and long to help extend drives. And for Christian himself, if he can stay healthy, there's no reason to believe a big season is not in store for San Francisco's running back. I think Christian, the history shows, he'll have a great game. And again, Seattle's defense is not really in a good spot. They're trying to get there, but there is no reason to believe that the San Francisco 49ers should not be able to establish the run against the Seahawks defense this Sunday. But that brings us to a bigger question, the offensive line. We can talk about the weaponry, the quarterback play, Jauan Jennings, Pearsall, Kittle, all these things. If you cannot block, guys cannot get the rock. It's a twist on no block, no rock. It's kind of the same thing here too, though. If the offensive line doesn't block, nobody's getting the rock for San Francisco. So can San Francisco's offensive line thrive or at least be adequate against the Seahawks defensive line, where, again, Seattle's defensive line isn't one I'd be worried about, but what Mike McDonald does better than maybe anybody in the NFL is disguise blitzes, brings pressures, 3 safety sets. He disguises his coverage. That in itself can be complicated for quarterbacks and receivers, but also that can throw San Francisco's offensive line into a twist. You saw it last year, albeit they were hurt for a lot of the season, no Trent for a game, and so many things worked against the San Francisco 49ers last season against the Seattle Seahawks. The Niners offensive line has massive questions. You love Trent, but he's older. We haven't seen him this year. What is he like post-ankle injury that cost him the second half of last season? Ben Bartch, can he stay healthy after being hurt for the majority of the preseason and training camp? I don't know. Are you going to have to see Connor Colby, a 7th-round rookie? What about Drew Moss and a UDFA? Like, there's real concerns behind even the starters. Jake Brendel's back for his 4th season with San Francisco. Look, Jake Brendel is a fine run blocker. As a pass blocker, major concern. Now, you're hoping Jake Brendel can return to his 2022 type season, or at least give you a little bit of that 2023 style season. If he does that and doesn't look like last year's laughing stock at center, then you can potentially have an adequate center and offensive line room. You love Purdy, but he was hurt. What does he look like? And you have Colton McKivitz, who San Francisco wants to re-sign to a new contract at some point during the year, but he wants to be an all-pro, Pro Bowler this year. Can he do that? There are some questions when it comes to blocking for Brock Purdy, opening up running lanes for Christian McCaffrey. So you talk about question marks for San Francisco. It's the trenches. And I can honestly say, if the Niners can win the trench game, they will win this game in a pretty or with ease. That sounds like really Sterling duh. Like trench warfare is usually the key to winning any game, but this game in specifically, because San Francisco has so many questions on both sides of the football in the trenches, I am going to be eager to watch the offensive line play, because with so many questions, they have to prove to us they can do this. You have to prove to the fan base that last year was a fluke. We can actually get things moving. And last year, again, I will say this over and over again, for all the crap that happened last year with San Francisco, the injuries, the ups and downs, the inconsistencies, a lot of that was because the offensive line sucked. And they're bringing back 4 of the 5 starters from last year, in which Purdy was great until the end. He obviously hit a rookie wall, and McKivitz was fine enough, but Trent's back again. I've already said the question marks, and the Seahawks defense on paper, personnel-wise, doesn't really offer much of a challenge, but Mike McDonald back there disguising his blitzes, the way he can manufacture pressure and move guys around, where the Seahawks maybe aren't good in coverage in their front 7, blitzing, run defending, they're much improved. So it'll be interesting to watch this Sunday. I would probably give the edge to Seattle's defense when it comes to the offensive line against their defense, and maybe their front 7 against our offensive line. But I do think San Francisco in the quick passing game, and even if they can block for a short period of time, and really this is where Shanahan's genius should come in, the bootlegs, the play action, the fakes. Where can you find space to buy Brock Purdy time to throw? That to me is a big key in this game for San Francisco. McDonald wants to be aggressive. He wants to blitz. He wants to get home. He wants to get hands on your quarterback early. How do you avoid that if you're San Francisco? You saw it last year, a couple of trick plays in Seattle, a big Deebo Samuel, a touchdown catch early in that game sparked the offense. And so it's really going to be, how does Kyle avoid falling into the trap of, like you saw against the Vikings last year, disguise blitzes, a lot of trickery in their coverages. Brian Flores, albeit is a better DC than McDonald, McDonald's right up there for one of the best DCs in football. He just hasn't had the personnel, and they're trying to get there. But I think I got to give the edge to the Seattle defense. But that's where the chess match comes. The chess match comes in for Kyle and McDonald. Who wins that? Who can find the right move? I want to see the Kyle that was predicting what the defense would do next with the referee a couple of years ago, I think in 2019. I want to see that Kyle this Sunday. How do you outmatch with your brain the opposing DC? This game is going to be tight. Going to be close. I think San Francisco wins this game, but there's room for error for San Francisco and some areas in which the Seahawks can really take the reins of this game at some point. And I think that is a great pivot point because the Seattle Seahawks got a new quarterback, Sam Darnold. And I like Sam Darnold. He's a fine quarterback. I think I'd rank him maybe closer to the top 20 than top 15, but he had a really great season last year, over 4,000 passing yards, like 30 plus touchdowns. He was great for about 15 weeks or so. Then it was like the wheels fell off. The ghost came out. It was like, oh my God, what happened to Sam Darnold? And the Seahawks are kind of banking on it being a lateral move, maybe a younger version of Geno Smith, maybe more mobile for the quarterback room this year with Milroe in there. And now Darnold, who's a much better runner than Smith was in Seattle and is now. But the Seahawks are hoping that Darnold can keep things competitive, not be the franchise guy. You hope he can be that, but they don't think he's that. He's an adequate lateral move to hopefully keep them afloat to get to the next guy, a placeholder, if you will, but a guy that can, if he hits, can win the NFC West for sure, can go to the playoffs and maybe do something. But again, there's a big question mark over his head. Which Sam Darnold will we see in 2025 and this Sunday? Will we see last year with the Vikings, weeks 1 through 15? The guy has said, oh my goodness, like he has broken out. He looks like the franchise guy. Are the Vikings going to actually let this guy walk in free agency? Or will he look like the guy that falls apart against the Lions last year and against the Rams in the playoffs? I don't know. And to me, that is where San Francisco's defense, they are the ones that can dictate that. And I'm not someone that believes you should wait around and find out. If you aren't being proactive, if you're not going out and being a go-getter, you're going to fall behind. And San Francisco this offseason was a go-getter. They brought back Robert Saleh, said, here's the draft. Who do you want? They bring in Micah Williams. They bring in Alfred Collins. They bring in TJ West. They go and trade for Bryce Huff. They keep a lot of the guys from last year's defense, Samuel Kawanu, Yetur Gross-Matos, Evan Anderson. They claimed Jordan Jefferson, a run-defending defensive tackle, off waivers on roster cutdown day. Like, they've been aggressive in trying to improve this room and stop Kenneth Walker and hopefully stop Sam Darnold, where you can see them wanting to, again, be proactive, to go and get the guys they believe can return their defense to form in 2025. And when it comes to opposing quarterbacks, and this Sunday, Sam Darnold, this interior defensive line for San Francisco is going to be, bar none, the key to victory for them. Yes, there are small keys when it comes to Christian McCaffrey's history of success with or against the Seattle Seahawks. Yes, there's the defensive stuff with Shanahan and McDonald locking horns in a chess match. But if San Francisco and the young guys in that room, the improving guys in that room, can find a way to get pressure on a much improved Seahawks interior offensive line, I believe three rookie draft picks, if not three, at least two. Gray Zabel, a 6th-round pick rookie at center, and I think their 7th-round pick also is playing at right guard. Maybe I'm wrong there, but two at least rookies playing for Seattle on the offensive line this week. Can they get pressure? If they can, we have seen Sam Darnold turn into a pumpkin when an opposing defense can force him out of the pocket, and the opposing defense can also lock down the edges, keep him in that pocket, rattle him. We have seen Darnold falter, fall apart, look like a jabroni, if you will. when opposing interior defensive lines can get pressure and just wreck shop. The fastest way to the quarterback is where? Through the center. If Alfred Collins and CJ West and Micah Williams, Kalia Davis, and those guys can get home, that will be a massive game changer for San Francisco. However, while I say that, Kyle Shanahan today in his pre-practice or post-practice press conference, it doesn't matter when it happened, but it happened today on Wednesday. Shanahan hinted, kind of exposed San Francisco a little bit as to what their biggest weakness might be this year. And he made it abundantly clear it might be that defensive line. He pretty much said, we love Michael. Alfred Collins has been great. We love CJ West. We love the guys here. However, Michael missed the entire preseason. CJ West missed the last 3 weeks of practice, didn't play in the final 2 preseason games. Alfred Collins missed the entire rookie minicamp, the entirety of OTAs. The pad level has been an issue for him. While we like what they could become, we don't know who they will be. And playing a Kubiak himself on the opposing Seahawks offensive coordinator spot, calling plays a Shanahan-style offense, he'll know. You know what? We can expose those guys a little bit. So when you have all or a large portion of your young defensive line, their first real NFL debut, that isn't a preseason game, is against the Seahawks, a really hard place to play where snap counts are an issue, young guys who are overeager. I would not be shocked to watch a couple of these guys jump off sides in this game. I know Shanahan said they're working on it during practice, but you cannot simulate a Lumen Field, a Seattle Seahawks 12th man style of defense when you have those fans just yelling at you the entire time. You can't hear. So young guys, overzealous, overeager, wanting to get home, wanting to prove themselves, wanting to get some sacks. Look out for some hard counts for the Seattle Seahawks this Sunday. And I really am expecting one, if not two of those guys, West, Collins, or Williams, to jump off sides a handful of times. Well, a handful is a lot. Maybe once or twice. I think that again, young guys in Seattle is never a good thing. And I think having those guys not play, not practice, and then say, hey, week 1's here, go. I wouldn't expect too much. I really wouldn't be shocked to watch those guys get sprinkled in and not play much in week 1. Use sparingly. I know they have talent and San Francisco needs them to play, but I would not expect Williams and West and Collins to be these massive, impactful players. I think they're going to rely on people like Kalia Davis, Jordan Elliott, Sam Okawanu, Bryce Huff, Nick Bosa. Again, they'll play Michael, they'll play Alfred, they'll play CJ West, but I would be shocked if they're starting this Sunday, just because of the way their offseason / preseason has gone. You want to work those guys in, I think, a little slowly because they haven't played. But again, that is a major factor for San Francisco. Again, I would give the edge to Robert Saleh. I think the defenses have a little bit of edge here, but again, San Francisco, like the offensive line, has a lot of question marks where you have Kubiak. Darnold's pretty mobile as a quarterback. The Seahawks have also been pretty adamant of running the football this year. You see in the preseason, Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, they're gonna give you some power, wide zone, inside zone running. So it'll be a big test for San Francisco's trenches. Again, this to me is the key to the game. This is where all the cards are held. If San Francisco's offensive line succeeds and opens up space, they'll win the football game. If the defense can't get pressure, we're in for a gunfight. And if you're San Francisco, yeah, you love your offense, but tricky and crazy things happen in Seattle. I know it isn't Pete Carroll, but just crazy things happen in Seattle. And you do not want to leave things up for chance if you're San Francisco. Please don't leave things up for chance. And by chance, I mean Jake Moody. Don't leave this game up to Jake Moody. I can see it now. San Francisco's winning 26-23, 1.5 minutes late or left in the game. Jake Moody shanks the kickoff. The Seahawks get the football at the 45-yard line. They milk the clock and they win the game. And you're like, are you serious? Don't leave things up to chance. Get home. It's a big factor. Will Sam Darnold be a difference? Can the defensive line get some pressure? Those are reliant on each other. Darnold can be a difference maker. He can beat you if you don't get pressure from the defensive line on the interior. But if you can, Darnold will have a harder time finding success, and has a higher chance of pumpkining up, is how I'll word that, I guess, this Sunday. Not quite fall yet, but we're getting there. Maybe a early season pumpkin from Sam Darnold. And also kind of along those same lines, can San Francisco's run defense stop Seattle's rushing attack? It's the same thing. When guys don't play for a long time and they're forced to go against first-round picks and a improved offensive line on the interior against the Seattle Seahawks, some guys get moved around. Like Alfred Collins, for as much as Shanahan has praised him the last couple of weeks or so, the pad level is still an issue. So just watch out for those things. They're important to watch, and I am a little reluctant to buy in completely into the performance of the defensive line week one. I love Saleh. Love what he brings to the table. Heck of a DC. He'll, like McDonald, disguise blitzes, utilize stunts, get guys in good places to succeed, which is where I think could be a difference in this game, where if it was last year, it was on paper, and Sorensen would just say, go out there and get them, boys. Yeah, yeehaw. And you're like, really? No stunts, no nothing, no disguised blitzes. Well, you saw in the preseason, you're having Chase Lucas blitz off the nickel spot. You're having D. Winters blitz off one side. Like, this is going to be an ultimate, it's almost like San Francisco is playing a mirror of themselves. And that's kind of fun, but also really scary, because sometimes those guys know you well and sometimes you know them well, and sometimes those games come down to the wire. So I can't wait to watch this game from a coaching standpoint, from a player standpoint. Although we want to win, from a pure football viewer standpoint, it should be a good game this Sunday. It always is when San Francisco and Seattle lock horns, but it should be a good game. Another key matchup, I think, for the San Francisco 49ers, really it's a question for the Seahawks. Are they going to miss DK Metcalf? The Seattle Seahawks had themselves quite the offseason, right? You traded with DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You let Lockett leave for the Titans. You change your quarterback, and you get an entire new offensive line, essentially, right? And you bring in a new offensive coordinator. This Seahawks team will not look the same as it did last year. They have been running some West Coast or some inside zone, outside zone Shanahan-like things in previous years, but last year they were not doing that very much until about the midway point of the season, in which they kind of took off and won their 10 games. But I think right now, Seattle, they brought in Cooper Kupp, they drafted Torrey Horton Jr., they had MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, for a hot second, cut him. Now he's on San Francisco. So funny enough, there's that. And you have Jaxon Smith-Njigba. My question is, right now, the Seattle Seahawks offense does not have a true X wide receiver. And I got a lot of heat for that on Twitter. Some agreed. If you did, thank you so much. But people didn't really understand what I was saying. I wasn't saying they don't have an X factor, because JSN is a great wide receiver. Maybe the second best, third best slot wideout in the entire league. Probably behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. And you can move Nico Collins inside sometimes. Maybe that's the case. Puka Nacua as well, but those guys are predominantly outside. Thus, JSN, who I think is a good receiver, he is a slot wideout. When you trade away DK Metcalf, does that mean the Seahawks are going to move JSN to play the outside, the X, more? Because Cooper Kupp is there now. Are you going to run two slot wideouts? You can do that. It's not uncommon in today's NFL, but JSN and Cooper Kupp have, although different ages and speeds and talents, it's a rather redundant skill set for the Seahawks. So it'll be interesting to see how they line those guys up, because it certainly matters for San Francisco as to how they match up their secondary with the Seattle Seahawks offense and their wideouts. Because if you're San Francisco, and right now it seems like Jair Brown and Jason Pinnock will be your starting safeties week 1 against the Seahawks. And look, you don't like that. I don't love that, but you cannot trot out Marquis Siegel, Upton Stout, Micah Williams, Alfred Collins, and CJ West and say, 5 new starters. Have at it. You can't do that. So I understand putting Jair Brown back there in Pinnock. However, to me, the bigger question becomes, what do you do with Upton Stout? You cut Dallas Flowers. Trey Brown, who you brought in to be one of your outside cornerbacks, is on injured reserve. He's out for the year. So what do? The fan in me says, I want to see Upton Stout play. But just like Michael and just like CJ West, he didn't play a single preseason snap. West played 1 game. You get my point, though. He didn't play a single preseason snap. Upton Stout didn't. He's been out for 3.5 weeks or so. Do you want his first game back to be against Cooper Kupp and JSN in the slot? That's not going to go well for him. Now, maybe he rises above and plays well, but you're setting your guy up for disaster, to get beat, to lose confidence early in himself. You don't want to do that. I think it would be wise of San Francisco, and I think you'll see this. While I wouldn't want the latter of these two choices, but you'll see Chase Lucas out there, I think, play the outside cornerback spot, with Lenore being moved inside to guard and shadow JSN. Now, when JSN's playing outside, Upton Stout comes out and plays nickel against Cooper Kupp. That, to me, is what they'll do. Maybe I'm wrong. We shall see. But I think that is a really good opportunity for them to mix and match, get your number 1 cornerback against their number 1 wide receiver. And that also sets Stout up for a higher level of success against Cooper Kupp, who's like 32, who's always hurt, has played, I think, 1,300 snaps the last 2 years. That's not a lot by any means. He's slower. He's very smart. He knows what he's doing. He's a good receiver still, but just isn't the same guy he once was. I think that is a better route. I also think there's a way where Darrell Luter Jr. plays the outside cornerback spot. This is the latter option I wouldn't like, but I do think you will not just simply see Upton Stout opposite JSN on most plays. I think San Francisco, if they're wise, will put Lenore shadowing JSN on most plays. And once JSN goes outside, that's when Stout comes in. Now, I think you see Chase Lucas in this game. I think you may see Luter Jr. I just don't think you're going to see Stout be the one-on-one guy against JSN. I think when it comes to a matchup perspective, having Lenore shadow to a certain degree JSN and have Stout guard Cooper Kupp is a much better matchup for San Francisco and a much smarter play for this defense. Whereas you have Torrey Horton out there. He's their burner, younger guy. I'm not too worried about him, but I do think not having DK Metcalf does complicate things for Seattle's offense. Again, I don't love DK. He's a crybaby, but he would go deep. He'd open up the offense where right now they don't really have that. JSN can do that sometimes, but again, his strength is in the slot. It's the intermediate game. It's the outside, or it's the boundary, but not deep. It's stuff like that where JSN will usually win in the 15-plus yard game, not in the 20-plus yard downfield game, where Metcalf would go deep. Like Geno Smith last year would open the game up with like 2 deep shots back-to-back for DK Metcalf. It was a thing they did often, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I think Seattle will miss that in their offense this year, so watch out for that this Sunday. The matchups of Lenore, JSN, Stout, Kupp, what happens with the secondary of San Francisco, depending on the rotation the Seahawks offense does with their wide receivers. Let's pause for 1 second to remind you guys that if you want to see your San Francisco 49ers play this year, or if you're a concert person, want to go see a concert live, or you want to maybe go to an MLB playoff game this year, the WNBA is in full swing. almost playoff time for them. The NBA is inching closer to play. If you want to get some tickets for yourself and the family, go to SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase by using promo code 49ers Access. 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. I use it. My wife uses it. My family uses it. It is the number one ticketing app in the country. If you are looking for late week tickets to go to Lumen Field, use that promo code 49ers Access and get your tickets and $20 off your purchase at SeatGeek.com. It helps us out, and in return, it helps you out as well. It's a win-win deal. Just like, and what a segue here, the Jauan Jennings contract for the San Francisco 49ers. And now it's time to get into the wide receiver room, another area of concern for the red and gold this Sunday. What happens behind Jauan Jennings? How, and I think a bigger question is, who steps up? Is Jauan Jennings going to be 100%? I think he will be. That calf injury, he was moving today pretty good at practice. They gave him more money, although incentive-wise, $3 million. That's a good faith move to say, hey, he's healthy. I think Jauan will be 100% or at least 95% this Sunday, so a really good sign for San Francisco. But what do you expect from Pearsall? Who's going to step up behind Jennings and Pearsall? I think Pearsall and Purdy have looked phenomenal in training camp, phenomenal in preseason in their one game together. I don't know who exactly the Seahawks will guard Pearsall with, whether it is Woolen or Devon Witherspoon. My assumption is Witherspoon, and they're going to have Woolen if he's starting for them. We don't know just yet. The unofficial depth charts are out. Those are not made by the coaching staff, so we'll see what the Seahawks do this weekend. But I think it'll be Woolen on. Did I say Pearsall? I'm lost in my own thoughts, lost in my own sauce, if you will. But I have loved what I've seen from Pearsall and Purdy this offseason and preseason. I think Pearsall is in for a massive leap forward in year two. But the bigger question becomes, while you have faith in them, who and how will they scheme against the Seattle Seahawks quarters press coverage defense? Pearsall, for as good as he is, and as good as he can be beating man coverage, has struggled sometimes in press coverage. I would not be shocked if MacDonald deploys press coverage defense. Seattle has bigger cornerbacks. They run three safeties a lot. You want to stymie San Francisco's offense? Jam those wide receivers. Do not let them off the line. Jauan, for as big as he is, if he has a lingering minor calf injury, jamming him could create some problems for the Niners offense. Jamming Pearsall, smaller receiver, but a shifty guy at that. Jamming him has shown to be at times a problem. I think you'll see the Seahawks play some press coverage early in this game, try to stymie Niners passing offense, and let's see how Shanahan kind of adjusts during the game. With that said, I think that is good news, and a big reason why you're going to see Marquez Valdez-Scantling in this game a lot. Now, I don't think he'll be targeted a ton. In fact, I wouldn't target him much because he drops the ball a lot. He's not great at contested catches. He really is simply a clear out the defense for us. If he can do that for you, and that's why he's here, because Watkins is out, Ayuk is out, and Robinson's out. They don't have a guy that can clear the defense out. You get MVS in there, he can hopefully clear things out for the Niners offense, open up space in the intermediate routes, on the crossing routes, in the flats for Jauan Jennings, Kittle, McCaffrey, and Pearsall. I'm expecting Pearsall to have about 6 catches in this game. Jauan's probably going to have about 4. However, with those 3 safety sets, another question becomes, who will be in the slot for San Francisco? Will it be Jauan Jennings? Will it be MVS? Could we see George Kittle in the slot? Or will they utilize him as an inline tight end to deflect some of the blitzes that McDonald wants to bring? It's the game within the game. It's the I am the game that came to win. If you get that rock reference, hit that like button right now because we are one in the same that loves 1990s and early 2000s WWF, the Fed, or in this case now WWE. But I do think that for San Francisco, you're not going to see much of guys like Russell Gage or Sky Moore. I wouldn't expect much of those guys. Anyways, I do think San Francisco, they'll rotate those guys in for sure, mainly Gage and MVS, but I don't think Sky Moore truly has a role on the offense. I think he's punt return only. I think that it'll be a Jennings, Pearsall, Kittle, with a little bit of MVS to open up space for guys. He'll be the primary third receiver for the Niners, but against those three safety sets, the Niners may have an X factor because when you run three safety sets, one, it gives you a bigger bodied defensive back to guard against bigger wide receivers like Jauan Jennings, but also it gives you a guy you believe can go one-on-one with tight end with George Kittle. However, George Kittle, we talked about Christian McCaffrey's ownage of the Seattle Seahawks. Well, George Kittle since 2021, in fact, I believe it was since the second game in 2021, he has 7 touchdowns against the Seattle Seahawks, who, again, didn't get much better. He has 3 multi-touchdown games against this defense, including one last year at Lumen Field in Seattle in prime time on Thursday Night Football. Could happen again. He also has 427 yards. And like I already said, the Seattle Seahawks do not have a single, not one, uno, that's Spanish for one, good coverage linebacker. So when you talk about some X factors for San Francisco, hey, here comes George Kittle, who him and Brock Purdy, I will always say this, are, I think, the best. And if not the best, because you have Kelsey and Mahomes have legacy and whatnot, Purdy and Kittle, I think, are the best quarterback and tight end combo in the NFL. They're awesome. They're going to lock horns. They're going to find each other. They're going to link up. They're going to fusion Dragon Ball Z style in this game. They always find each other. And I think while you can debate as to how Kittle's used, inline tight end, a chip blocker at times, I think the Niners are walking into this Sunday ultimately confident that they have the edge offensively. And on defense, don't have the edge much. But I think San Francisco, like, I haven't even mentioned Fred Warner yet or Nick Bosa really much yet. Like, the Seahawks left tackle has not played the entire preseason, Charles Cross. Nick Bosa, hey, let's exploit that. Nick Bosa, I think he talked today, which I don't love the answer, but in the same vein of, like, if he plays well, then we do good too as a defense. He talked about, what his goals were. And he kind of said pretty much his goals are just now personal. Of like, I want to be the best. I want to be a game-wrecking player, if you will. Didn't mention a Super Bowl, which I don't love that, but he said he reached the pinnacle already, winning Defensive Player of the Year. But it does seem like he wants to do it again. And so to hear Bosa say that, and it's like, well, you have a game like this where young defenses around you, now is the time. John Cena's time is almost up in WWE. Your time is now, Nick Bosa. Get out there. Give me the 5-knuckle shuffle, the AA. I told my wife yesterday, I go, hey, honey, did you know that John Cena's finishing move was never the AA when I was young? It was the FU. And his submission move was the STFU. Yeah, sort of break your hearts, kids. John Cena was out there giving dudes the FU. And don't get me started on what the 5-knuckle shuffle actually means. I digress. Back to the show. Maybe San Francisco gives the Seattle Seahawks a 5-knuckle shuffle this Sunday. Not to get too morbid, but here we are on the show. at 12:07 on September 4th, early in the morning. We have now reached week 1 of the NFL season, folks. It's here. It's tonight. But look, I think San Francisco wins this game. I think I've laid out a lot of reasons as to why they can win and some reasons they can lose. I do think San Francisco ends up leaving Lumen Field week 1 with the victory, mainly because they kind of have to, but also I do think they have the edge in many aspects. But it'll be a chess match this Sunday. Shanahan, McDonald, Purdy, that defense, Darnold, San Francisco's defense, Kittle, Pearsall, Jennings against McDonald's 3 safety sets and what they do. Can Christian McCaffrey return to the field and look like the former offensive player of the year? It's the questions that we have and must answer this Sunday, week 1, Niners, Seahawks. Tell me down below your prediction for this game. Who do you think comes out on top? That didn't make sense. Who do you think comes out on top this Sunday? Do you think San Francisco starts the season off 1-0 or 0-1? And I'll tell you my score prediction right now. I think San Francisco wins this game 27-23. It's close. It's gritty. We thank God get to avoid the Jake Moody disaster that inevitably is coming down the road at some point. But week 1, San Francisco, I think, wins. They make a statement, 27-23, beat the Seahawks on the road, wearing their white jerseys, and kick off the season right. Get the monkey off their back and begin to undo how terrible last year was. It'll be a dogfight till the end. There are ways the Seahawks can win this football game. However, my money is on San Francisco, but do not discredit the Seahawks this year. I do think this could be a potential division NFC West matchup. The Seahawks are going to be confident, competent. They are going to be competitive throughout the entire year. It is important the Niners get the early leg up on them and hopefully enter week 2 1-0 after leaving week 1 1-0 as well. So I cannot wait. Football is back finally in our lives. It's been a terrible offseason. So much. It's been so boring. There's been so many lulls of, oh, kicker competition. Oh, who's the kick returner? Who's the punt returner? New coaches, draft picks. There's been so much, and it's leading to a week like this. NFL week 1, season opener, Niners, Seahawks, a hated rivalry. Quarterbacks that were backups for each other at one point. Darnold was the backup for Purdy 2 years ago. Kubiak was under Kyle Shanahan 2 years ago. There's so much connections, and I think San Francisco ultimately says, in this case, the master bests the protege. 1-0 San Francisco wins this game 27-23 and kicks off the 2025 NFL season on the right foot. Tell me down below what you think happens this Sunday. Do you think San Francisco wins this game or do they lose? And in the meantime, follow me on social media at 49ers_access is the X or Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And after Sunday's game, don't tune in here just yet. Go to 95.7 The Game. Catch me and one of my good friends, Mark Grandy, locking things down for you live on the radio, live on YouTube, hosting Overtime, 95.7 The Game's official postgame show for every single week of the San Francisco 49er season. Then come back here to this channel after that, where we dissect the game more in-depthly and react all together on 49ers Access. Football's back. We're locked in for another season right here on the show. Don't go anywhere. Until next time, though, my name is Sterling Bennett. Enjoy week 1. Go Niners. And stay faithful.